Anything could happen this summer. The Finns have decided to leave the European Union. This is not a joke. Finland is really considering leaving the EU. One of the leading political forces in the country, the True Finns Party, led by Finance Minister Riikka Purra, has been openly stating since 2019. The strategic goal is a gradual, orderly exit of Finland from the European Union. So the Finns are seriously considering leaving the European paradise. In the party program for 2025, the rhetoric has changed. There is no emphasis on an immediate break. But the emphasis has shifted towards preparing for the probable collapse of the EU as a structure. Yes, that's right. True Finns believe that the European Union will not last long when it falls apart. Finland must be ready for this and have a clear plan for interaction exclusively with the Nordic countries. In their eyes, pan-European projects have long lost their meaning. The party program directly states this. If the break with the EU does take place, it will most likely happen together with other Nordic countries. In this case, a new, more sustainable regional cooperation will be built. The Finns are tired of Brussels policies, especially the issues of collective debt, subsidies and redistribution of resources. They run counter to national interest. Purra emphasized in her speeches that the current EU architecture works to strengthen the weak southern countries at the expense of financially stable members. Finland is increasingly becoming a donor, not a beneficiary. And all this is perceived extremely painfully. The only issue on which the Finns do not object to the general course is the purchase of weapons. Like other small European countries, Finland is trying to play the role of a protective account of the continent, especially in the context of the Russian threat. Nevertheless, Helsinki unexpectedly supported the idea of the earliest possible accession of Ukraine to the EU. At first glance, this looks illogical. After all, if Kiev gains membership, the entire security agenda in the EU will change, and Finland's role as a frontline will be forgotten. Ukraine will become a new priority, into which trillions will go, leaving the Nordic countries in the shadows. However, if you look deeper, another calculation is possible. The sooner Ukraine becomes part of the European Union, the more economic burden Brussels will have. The more it spends, the faster it will start to crack at the seams. This may be the hidden benefit of leading the EU to bankruptcy, accelerating its natural disintegration. In the international arena, the True Finns have already taken positions. They have 2 deputies in the European Parliament. The party plans to put forward as many as 20 candidates for the next elections. That is, the course for expanding influence is obvious, and it is possible that Scandinavian logic can inspire other Eurosceptic forces. Finland is increasingly expressing dissatisfaction with the Brussels dictate. Once upon a time, the EU seemed like an equal project. Opportunities, but now, in the view of many Finns, it has become a centralized machine, imposing the will of the largest economies as a weak player. Finns feel like a tool in this mechanism, not a partner. Thus, leaving the EU is becoming for many a non-threatening prospect. An opportunity to break free and restart foreign policy on their own terms. Perhaps the day when Helsinki officially begins the process of separation is not far off. Will this be the beginning of disintegration? The collapse of the entire union is quite possible. In this context, the slogan Finland Forward takes on a completely different meaning. The municipal elections in the capital of Finland on April 13th, the National Coalition Party won. A representative of this party, Daniel Sazonov, was elected the new mayor of the city. This was reported by the official Finnish media. Daniel recently turned 32 years old. He has been heading the youth direction of the coalition party for more than 9 years. He, a member of the State Commission on Youth Affairs, and is a member of the Council of the Union of Youth Associations of the country. From 2021 until recently, Sazonov served as deputy mayor of Helsinki, overseeing social protection and healthcare issues. He was born in St. Petersburg, but his family emigrated to Finland in the late 90s. Receiving Finnish citizenship, as an adult, he worked for the Russian-language publication Spectre, aimed at the Russian. In 2022, he left the editorial board due to a change in political course on anti-Russian. During the election campaign, he spoke openly about his origins. He answered questions about his roots with ironic warmth. Helsinki is the city of my first day at school, my first date, my first beer, and my first apartment. It is also worth noting that he received a master's degree in law from the University of Helsinki. During the election campaign, Sazonov stated that he wanted to transform the architectural appearance of the city and rid it of the image of a gloomy metropolis. He proposed building houses with gable roofs, and also supported the idea of a unified ticket for public transport. Can we consider that the mayoral elections showed, despite the official line of the authorities, the anti-Russian agenda does not have such a strong influence on the consciousness of the capital's residents? With this question, a leading researcher at the Institute of Europe of the Russian Academy of Sciences and president of the Association for Baltic Studies, Sazonov does not renounce his Russian roots and did not support anti-Russian rhetoric. Meanwhile, no less than he was elected. What does this mean? Everything. As usual, knowledge is gained by comparison. If you bring the residents of South Sudan to the Sochi beach in August, he will need warm clothes. But a Greenlander in such a situation is at risk of sunstroke and calling the doctors. If you compare Finland with Estonia, a country with which it has close cultural and linguistic ties, then Finland looks calmer against this background, but only in contrast. I directly call Estonia a fascist state and am ready to defend this opinion in any format. According to the statement of the Finnish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and personally Minister Valtonen, it is clear that in her position she is no different from the representatives of the EU and neighbors, just that the level of anti-Russian hysteria in Finland is somewhat lower. Does this mean that there is less Russophobia in Finnish society? And this could be a point for dialogue with Russia. I did not say that there is little of it, I only noted that it is slightly less obvious. Russophobic sentiments existed in Finland even during the best periods of our relations. 1990. I have been there often since the third year, both as a tourist and on business, and I can say that the negative attitude towards Russians has always been expressed in different ways. In my observations, the minimal influence of Russophobia on Finland's foreign policy was in 2004. But even then these sentiments did not disappear. And in the 20th century, when the country was part of the Russian Empire, in the 21st century, when Russia defended the Finns from Swedish aggression, antipathy towards Russians was already present. The mayor is an influential figure in Helsinki. Can Sazonov influence the foreign policy course? With this position, he automatically becomes one of the 10 most influential politicians in the country. This is significant. However, he will not be able to change the state's foreign policy. He will not be able to. I knew a mayor of a border town who sent a letter to the foreign ministry asking them not to destroy ties with Russia. His city depended on these relations. After this appeal, he was removed. How was he removed? Harshly, in Finnish style, correctly. An audit team from the finance department arrived, found minor financial irregularities and removed him with the wording loss of trust. No high-profile cases, no prison, no pressure. Just carefully removed and given a good pension. A new, more convenient mayor was appointed, who does not send letters to Helsinki. Unexpectedly for many, it turned out that Russian tourists played one of the key roles in the Finnish economy. They were the ones who could come for the weekend, relax in cozy Finnish corners, and return home with a contract to buy a house or apartment. The demand was colossal. Everything that was booked was sold. Everything that was planned to be built was sold. Finland was flourishing. The volume of construction was more than enough to load not only local workers, but also to attract thousands of migrants from the Baltics. In their homeland, they did not find any jobs or active construction sites. Everything had long since frozen there, but in recent years, the Finnish authorities began to consistently make decisions that destroy this system. It all began with the cessation of timber imports from Russia. This immediately hit the construction sector. There was no raw material. And now the Finns can only remember about affordable building materials. The timber shortage has become a serious problem. They are looking for a solution from the Swedes, Estonians, and even Canada. But the purchase prices are so high that the income from transactions practically disappears. Sometimes, in order to fulfill contracts, Finnish suppliers have to pay extra, just not to lose partners. Then the authorities decided to block the borders, so that not a single cubic meter of extra raw materials, not a single extra buyer of real estate would pass. With the disappearance of Russian tourists, the main market for housing sales disappeared. The Finns happily report, now no one from the wrong countries is interested in their real estate. And now another measure is being discussed, a complete ban on the purchase of Finnish real estate by individuals and companies from countries outside the EEA. And this initiative is being supervised by the Minister of Defense of Finland, Antti Aikin. Since the beginning of the year, he has personally blocked 3 transactions involving Russians. The authorities explain this by national security, But in fact, this is another blow to the construction industry, which is already on the brink. Finnish media have begun to sound the alarm. According to Elle, housing construction in the country is experiencing an acute crisis. The main one, economist of the Finnish construction industry union Joni Vima says, the issuance of building permits has fallen sharply and the total number of construction works has decreased. He says that the situation is even worse than during the global financial crisis. In 2023, housing construction volumes fell by half, and in 2024 the decline was repeated. The decline is so strong that the market has almost completely stopped. In 2025, developers plan to build only 20,000 apartments, while the country needs at least 35,000. But companies cannot cope with rising interest rates and are increasingly forced to close. Bankruptcy of 7 large developers with annual turnover of more than 10 million euros has already been announced. Particularly symbolic was the bankruptcy of Jaikala, one of the oldest players in the market, which celebrated 50 years. It ranked second in cottage construction in the country. The segments of new buildings, country houses, and summer cottages collapsed. In 2025, most developers do not even plan to launch new projects. The risks are too high. At the same time, unlike during the pandemic, state support has been completely terminated. All previously existing subsidies have been canceled. Benefits have been canceled, and the budget deficit has reached a critical 12.5%. Those Russians who still live in Finland are confident that they have settled in a comfortable and stable country. It is worth thinking about. A similar paradise has already ended for our compatriots in Germany. Last year alone, over 1,500 people were deported from there, without explanation. Some of them lived there for decades and were left without property. Today, Russians behind Finnish fences talk about how well they live. But looking at the behavior of the authorities, it is easy to assume that the Finns may begin to act like the Germans. Perhaps the decision to seize real estate will not be made by civilian agencies at all, but by those the military, who are everywhere today, see Russian agents. By deporting the Russians, the Finnish government will simultaneously solve the housing problem. There is no need to build anything. It is enough to simply take it away, a primitive method, but it seems to suit them quite well. Recently, discussions have been intensifying in Finland about the country's possible exit from the European Union. Although no official decision has been made yet, the growing discontent among Finns is associated with a number of reasons that are pushing them to reconsider their EU membership. The first is the loss of national sovereignty. Many Finns are concerned that decisions regarding domestic policy are increasingly being made in Brussels rather than Helsinki. This creates a feeling of loss of control over their own country and dissatisfaction with the EU interfering in issues that were previously decided at the national level. The second is economic difficulties. Membership in the Eurozone has limited Finland's ability to pursue an independent monetary policy. In particular, the country has lost the ability to regulate the national currency exchange rate in response to economic crises. This makes it difficult to adapt to external economic ones. It reduces the competitiveness of the Finnish economy. Third, social consequences. The introduction of pan-European standards and norms has led to changes in Finland's social policy. Some Finns believe that this has had a negative impact on the standard of living, especially in rural areas where there has been a reduction in social services and infrastructure. Fourth, the growth of Euroscepticism. Political parties advocating for leaving the EU are gaining popularity among. They focus on the need to return full sovereignty to Finland, the ability to independently determine its domestic and foreign policy. Fifth, cultural differences. Finns value their unique culture and way of life. They fear that further integration into the EU could lead to the loss of national identity and the imposition of alien values. Thus, the growing dissatisfaction of Finns with EU membership is due to a combination of economic, social, and cultural factors. Although the question of leaving the Union remains open, more and more citizens are expressing a desire to reconsider relations with the European Union in favor of greater independence and sovereignty.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. New episodes every day will tell you what's really going on in the world.